Microphone check, 1, 2. What is this? It's B. Michael here with Shifting Paradigms Business, and we are live here. It is April 3rd, 2023, on KUAW Radio, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom Radio with the W.B. Du Bois Center, brought to you by the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. That's right, Shifting Paradigms. We're here, got Baba G on the soundboard, holding it up and keeping it down. As always, Baba G saw me, was like, you got a new haircut. I'm like, I did. I told him I tried to get myself a little part. You know, I'm my own barber. And end up putting a 2-lane highway in my head. But it's all good because it's back, you know, it's growing back slowly but surely. But, you know, fortunately, I got that kind of dome that I can rock, you know, what I need to rock. And it's just hair. As Indy Ari said, I'm not defined by my hair. It's just hair. So it's all good. It's all good. But this is Shifting Paradigms, you know, and what we are all about here on Shifting Paradigms, we're about stimulating critical thought in order to realistically redefine our narrative and positively reshape our reality through dialogue with some good Kuji Chagalia, that good self-determination. We do got a studio host. He's stuck in traffic, so he's en route, but we're going to get him here when he gets here, and we're going to keep it moving. Okay, but want to just kind of go a little review. Last week, or last episode, we had a dynamic show, and it was called The Aesthete Paradigmatics. This was the Lovers of Art Paradigmatics with Kevin Church Johnson and Natasha Rhea El-Scarvi. And we discussed their artistic journey, some of the projects they got going on, and their new project in particular, We Found Us. And I just understand this past weekend they had a listening party at the Bruce Watkin Cultural Heritage Center, and I heard it was great. Didn't get to make it, unfortunately. But I support the peoples, you know what I'm saying? I love the peoples. And that album is cold-blooded. I mean, every track rides. It just rides. And so if you haven't heard it, you can stream it on all the streaming platforms and just vibe out to it. Natasha's voice is so silky smooth. Kevin Johnson's voice is sultry and just needed, you know, that good masculine energy. You know what I mean? And then the production that Kevin got on it with my man Desmond. I forgot Desmond's last name. But they did their thing on this album. It's quality. Check it out if you haven't checked it out. I support it. This episode with my man Gerald J. Mays gets here, we're dealing with mastering the matrix paradigmatics, and we're going to be talking about some current events surrounding economics, politics, and spirituality. So when he gets here, we're going to dive into that a little more. I'm going to come back to that to preface it a little bit before he gets here. But our next episode, I'm excited about that as well. Our next episode is going to feature poet Seth Irving. And the name of that paradigmatic is called Praise Paradigmatics. And we're going to share Seth's worldview as well as some of his art. So I'm excited to definitely deal with Seth Irving and allow him to have his platform and share what it is he does. He's a very, very insightful young man and provides a lot of inspiration and a lot of encouragement and spiritual fortitude and wisdom, you know. And so I'm looking forward to interviewing him and getting his interview. You know what I mean? And so as we start to just prepare for Gerald to get here, you know, it's a lot of stuff going on in the world of economics and even politics, you know what I'm saying? And these are very important topics that have become taboo to speak about. You know, people really don't want to talk about economics. People don't want to talk about politics. People don't really even want to talk about spirituality. But these areas affect our life daily. And so, you know, it's so interesting. Well, I don't share my politics with people. I don't share my spirituality with people. I don't share my economics with people. And this is why we're so doggone behind, because these areas of human activity are vital as relates to orienting ourselves, you know, for sovereignty, ultimately for our sovereignty, you know, because if we're not aligning with like-minded individuals, of course, you know, we do. But even across the aisle, we have to cross the aisle and have some understanding in these particular areas, because one thing is for sure, the puppet masters and the social engineers have designed society as such where they keep these areas divided or even marginalized and even ostracized individuals in their different groups. And they really put the smoke and mirrors up to keep the working class people particularly in the dark and at each other's throat, most importantly, and not knowing how to unify, you know, based on these major life activity circumstances that are going on. So as we're looking at what the BRICS nations are doing, you know, you look at Brazil, you look at Russia, you look at India, you look at China, you look at South Africa. And recently they're admitting Saudi Arabia and Iran, right? And some of these other countries that have no Federal Reserve banks or central banks in their system, you know, they're aligning. And they're looking to go back on a gold and silver standard, particularly a gold standard. And that is something that fractional reserve banking does not operate on. That's called fiat currency. And I know my man Gerald's going to come in and talk about that some more. But if you all are not familiar with the differences between real money and fiat currency, that's something to get abreast of. And so we got to definitely make sure that we are aware of that. And just as I said it, my man walks in here. Peace and power to you. Welcome, my brother. No doubt, no doubt. So we're going to get these gentlemen here online. Okay, and we're going to take just a brief moment to go ahead and get these brothers here on air. And I got an extra studio guest today, so I'm excited to even go with this a little more. So we're going to take just a brief break, and we'll be right back. Mics are hot. We back on live here. It's B. Michael again with Shifting Paradigms. And like I said, I got an additional studio guest, so this is a pleasure for me to definitely bring another brother on. But at this time, I want to introduce my man, Gerald J. Mays. Go ahead and let the listeners know who you are, and then I'm going to come right to you, Brother LaRon.
Right. Okay. Hey, everyone. How you doing out there? My name is Gerald Mays, and what I do is I work in the private sector, and I work with Swing Tree Trust. This is my business partner, LaRon Green, of course, on the other side of the table. But I also work with different charities. So what I do now is I volunteer at the Goodwill, and I help over there. But also we have Mays Foundation, which helps with inner city. We've just added, well, let me get a history on it. So going back, we've been sponsoring about 6 orphanages. We started in 2016. 16 we started. And we've been doing this for years. My wife and I had our own pocket and things, so we ended up in a situation to where we accumulated a foundation to where we can help more and have a bigger impact. It started with the youth out here in Grandview. I saw an orphanage. I'm from Louisiana. I'm not used to seeing kids running around in the cold like that. So these things happen from there. And my wife and I, we ended up forming Mays Foundation. And again, we've been doing a coat drive for some years now. And we've expanded to 6 orphanages and 2 schools, so we 2 elementary schools. So we help in those things, and we have a lot of different people within the region that we are proud to say that we help. You know, our Hope Center is one of our biggest influences and clients as far as friends. You know, we've made a family with them, and a lot of the different orphanages that we sponsor. So that's just in a nutshell. Well, also my wife and I we founded Mays Freight Solutions. So what we do, we are it's a woman-owned. It is a family situation to where we are teaching kids, and we're teaching kids about freight transportation anyway, our own kids. Yeah. But we've been running Mays Freight for about 6 years now.
Awesome.
And it's full truckload logistics. We are a brokerage full time like that. So. Just trying to think of some other little things like, you know, like, God, and I don't like to like, I don't know. I guess not
No
sound like I'm
doubt.
boasting or
You
something.
just sharing, brother.
Yeah,
You
I'm
just
like,
sharing what
I'm
you
really
doing.
nobody. The thing I'm just one. That's what I identify. I'm nobody.
vessel,
so
brother.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
do the best that I can. I met brothers like
Undeniably.
you and LaRon
Yeah.
along the way that God
Right.
has put in my path, and like
Yeah.
we've been so blessed to be with brothers like you that have a positive note on every time I've seen you, man.
Yeah, praise the
It's
Most
like
High, man.
I love it, man. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit me. Again, nobody, just trying to do a positive thing in KC and make the best environment
Yeah.
I can for my kids and your kids and
No
our
doubt.
grandkids, and that's the whole idea. So
True.
I'll turn it over to your brother. I don't.
No doubt, no doubt. I appreciate that. No doubt.
Yeah,
Gerald
just
J.
excited
Mays,
to be here, man.
Okay,
You know, like
no
really,
doubt.
really excited.
Respect.
You know, this is real, real. Yeah.
And brother LaRon Green.
Yeah, I'm LaRon Green. I'm with Swing Tree Consulting. We help families and businesses with trust and family foundations. I'm a small business owner. Been a small business owner for over 20 years. You know, struggled, good times, bad times. I was fortunate enough to meet a brother to say, hey, man, let me show you how to structure your business properly. That way, take some of this tax burden off of your backs. You know, went through a few situations to where had to go to court a few times, and you know, they attack your assets. And you know, thank God now that I'm structured properly, that's not an issue anymore. And I always wonder, how do families survive this type of thing? You know, and like I said, I had the brother that gave me the opportunity to learn and mentor me on how to coach and set up other families and businesses the way that he helped me set up mine. And from there is how Swing Tree started. Yeah. Yep. So I was able to help this brother realize him and his family's dream by helping them set up their private family foundation. And brother has a big heart, as you can see.
Yeah.
And he does a lot with that big
That's a
heart.
black man.
And this is just a vehicle that allows him to be able to do more for other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're going to have to sit down too, brother. For real, for real. No doubt. So you talk about like structuring your assets more so, right?
Correct.
And getting everything in order and alignment and protecting and
Yes.
sheltering yourself from the different burdens that come from, you know, federal government, state government, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? What brought your attention to that? You said you had to go to court and had to go through some situations.
Well, like most people, you know, I had a passion for, you know, I have a hair salon. I have a passion for hair. I do hair. I've done hair for close to 30 years now. 20 years ago, I opened up my first hair salon.
Okay.
It was a very successful, and it still is a very successful hair salon.
Awesome.
But what you see coming in the front door does not really illustrate what goes out the back door in overhead and taxes.
Right.
So although it was a successful business, it was a tightly structured
Right, he
business.
was getting ate up.
Oh, God, you know, but you don't know what you
Yeah.
don't know, especially when you go into a business for passion and not really having a business background. I always tell people it was an expensive education, but it was an education.
Learning
know.
the lessons.
Hey, and I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there.
Right.
I just need to learn from people who have been successful. So I had another brother. His name was Tony Franklin. He passed on now, but he was my friend and my mentor. And he said, hey, this is how wealthy families are structured. They don't do the typical things that the typical people do. That's what separates the haves and the have-nots. Now, most people, including myself, think that you have to have millions and millions of dollars to be structured like that.
Right.
Because that's who you see structured like that.
Right.
Well, how do they get those millions and millions of dollars? You know, it's like the chicken or the egg. No, the structure definitely has to come first. And that's something that you need to pass down from generation to generation. You know, so once I was structured, it took a tremendous burden off of my back. And as this brother is doing with him and his family, he's able to do way more charitable things. Like, you know, that check that we would normally write out to the IRS this time of year, now you can do charitable things in your own community with it.
Right.
Honestly,
Yeah.
you can control what those dollars goes towards and get the same tax credits instead of letting Uncle Sam figure out what he wants to do with your money. You know, wars or take care of other countries and that type of stuff. When that money needs to be spent back on what I deem and what you deem as a priority
Right.
in our communities.
That's vital.
Yes.
That's vital. That's vital. So for you, entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
I find that important because this is all part of economics, right? And we're going to talk about some of the current events. But first, personally, I know you were working with the post office for some years, correct?
Yes, I was. I
And
was
so
working for the post office, yes.
let's just highlight your transition from being an employee to being self-employed. Like, what was your transition process
Oh man,
like?
it wasn't easy, but it was at the same time you see when something is needed. So what happened with this situation? My wife and I, we were bringing in well in over 6 figures, in other words, and we were comfortable. So the thing was, my wife, we got to a point where I've been in the postal service. Of course, you get the great benefits. You get the I had the best job in America. Like literally, I changed locks for a living, and it was simple. It was the easiest thing ever. So that gave me a lot of again time to think about other things in between time. You know, like looking at my world. I've lived in different places. I live here in Kansas City, a beautiful city I came to. It reminds me of my small town that I'm from in Louisiana. It's just on a bigger scale.
Okay.
And I think the people have a big heart too here. You know, big heart.
You Baton Rouge?
No, down in another town called Franklin. Small little town right on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
Down there. So I just before here I was in Chicago. So in Chicago I learned a lot. Just saw a lot of different things. I worked with different corporations like UBS and but I worked on the security side.
Okay.
But the thing was, I always that guy that asked questions. I've always asked questions. I learned that at Grambling State University. I'm from HBCU.
Okay.
And so
Go Tigers.
things, you learn it. Yeah, you learn the things, on your way to learning things, of course.
Yeah.
And so I've learned how to ask questions. So when I was at UBS, I was trying to figure out how these people they would come in with a check with, they would have like $250,000. And they would literally flip that money from $250K to a couple million, like within 6 months, 7 months. And I'm like, how are y'all doing this? So I asked the question, started seeing how they were structured a certain way. They would do things differently than how you would do our taxes on the 1040 side of things, in other words. And once I got here, and again, my wife and I, we were working, making good money, things were okay. And then one day she came home and she was stressed because they had acquisition to go on, and everything changed. Like her benefits, they flipped this. They always telling you we're going to keep it the same, but the new owner, they changed things. And so my wife went from this smiling woman to this frowning woman, and I looked at her one day and I said, my wife is one of the best brokers that ever lived, man. I mean, I'm not saying that just personally because that's my wife. I'm saying it because it's like I know game and I know somebody that know what they doing. My wife was like the only black woman in the top 10 every time of sales in her company for years, moving the most freight ever. And I looked at her in her face and I said, but you could do this on your own. You ain't got to do that with them if they treating you bad. I said, you always can start your own, and I planted that seed and that confidence behind, my wife. I'm like, I got you, no matter what, I got your back. So what happened was we were able to move with we started our brokerage, and immediately things took off. Boom, because my wife is just that good. She's
hit the ground running.
We hit the ground running, and we went from being we worked from our home, and then in a few months we were able to go from our home into a prime real estate. Or we moved to Overland Park, moved our office and everything there, and we started. We've been there for years. Wow. So the thing that made me say, all right, it became that time because it got to that situation to where, okay, we're bringing in enough to where my wife said, well, if you still want to keep going with the Postal Service, that's fine. She said, but we're here, and it's time for you to do other things, and all those ideas you have, it's time to do such. And at the same time, I had already met LaRon, but I had never stepped into that field of being an entrepreneur or any of that such. But once I said, okay, this is it, we went right to LaRon because I said, hey man, I know you know some things. I've seen how this brother's structured. I've seen his business. I mean, I've looked at his operation. I've been knowing him. I knew him before I decided to even jump into that world with my wife. I say, okay, I'm supporting you. She hit the ground running. We built the team together. In other words, we built the team together. Then I was doing it from my post. I was doing it while I was doing things in the postal service.
No doubt.
That.
Right.
And so it got to the point where I said, okay, I can jump ship now, and here we are, But we have to be structured the right way because of how much income you bring in. You get the higher tax bracket.
Right.
So I looked at that what was coming in. And I told her, I said, man, we can't do this, man. We got to quit this. We're going to shut this business down because it's not going to work.
Wow.
I said, these people are going to kill us. And LeBron said, no, bro, don't worry.
Right.
I got your back.
Structure.
I know exactly what to do. We're going to restructure you.
Yeah.
And I got on the phone with he and Tony. I met Tony. He's an awesome guy. Tony Frank is KC boy. He's an awesome guy, man. I miss him. And so he taught me a whole lot. I knew him for 5 years. I dealt with him for 5 years. Every day he would talk to me. We would have a discussion on something I had a question about, and my wife and I would have a question about. He would teach us how to do ABC. And then that day came when LeBron started Swing Tree. I jumped on with him because I said, you know what, this is what our community, and not just our community, every family needs this because of what's really happening in this crazy situation our country is in, this land is in.
Right.
So once I understood what the structure that LeBron and Tony gave me, I was able to start multiple businesses now. I said, okay, now I know how to open up more than one business at a time if I wanted to. I can move certain ways that I want to. I can move freely, in other words.
Right.
You know, and it's been a blessing, man, because I've been able to. We started did different things with it. Actually, I was starting a publishing company. I started wrote a book with a. I have a gift for you. I have a gift for you. I brought for you.
Okay, right.
I wrote a book for you. It's right over there.
Okay.
So all these different other things with my children. I started corporations and things for my kids. So when I said, hey, asked them, what do you want to do? And my youngest, she's 7, and she's been around us and she sees it. So she's she's corporate.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
no, Dad, this is what we're gonna do. And she found out about the other business that I'm involved in, is credit card processing. So she's been learning that on her own. I didn't do anything. She said, Dad, no, you need to go to the office and print out this for me. and LeBron knows
She's giving all the
assertive.
instructions.
She's just
That's
like
dope.
that. She's just like that. And she
Start
said,
'em
you need
off
to go
young.
print it out because you told me 2 days ago you're going to print this for me. So I went print it out, and she started learning the percentages and all these different things. And again, we've also, we're in the process of, I'm praying that we are almost done with, we're opening a private school. So we want to teach the right values, the right Christian values, the right values about God, and to kids. So what we're doing is we've partnered with certain people on. It's going to be on a state line. We're trying to get it close to the state line as possible because we want to incorporate. Well, there's a new law that just passed which helps a whole lot, man. Where you can. It doesn't matter what school you go to now.
Okay.
And as long as you get there.
Right.
So I'm glad that Missouri and Kansas are having that cooperation, so we can do this thing now. So
Yeah.
that was the thing we was like, oh, come on,
Let's
man. We
move.
just hope
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
And it did. So that's one of the projects that we have going on. We're doing a freight transportation education program for kids that's from 8 to 18, and we to teach them more about freight logistics and such. So it's a lot of different projects that's going on the side that
Right.
I would be here forever trying to tell you because I write every time I learn from LeBron. You write them down.
Take note.
You write them down every time,
Yeah.
and boom.
Yeah.
And I've again back to finish up the story about the entrepreneur spirit. My wife, I can say this, man. When you have, you all understand, when you have that rib, that wife, that woman, she is understand. You are connected. You know exactly how each other move. What you are her strength where she's weak, and she's your strength where you're weak, and that's exactly what I've been blessed with. So this woman, she knows I have a ton of ideas. I'm always just spitting them out ideas. It's always been like this. But she's that person. She's gonna grab it, and she's gonna
The incubator,
she's gonna
bro.
put it down. Yes,
Right,
it's going to
exactly.
start
Yeah.
off.
She's gonna birth it. She's
start
gonna bring it to life.
immediately, and I see that's where my daughter gets it from. And my youngest son, he also is the same difference.
Right.
And even my older children, they also have different things going on. One's at A&M and one's at in Chicago right now.
Okay.
And she's working within the industries and things. So
Powerful.
I'm just just trying to figure out like how do we take the same thing and give it to everybody else. I say it'd be wrong for us to keep this information
Spread the wealth.
just within us and within my wife. She getting back to her again. She's like, Maze, we should we've got to tell everybody about this. People need to know this because
True, so.
look what's happening. Look at what's happening. Look at the ideas that are spreading everywhere around the world.
Right.
If you look at what is happening in our world, it is a collapse that's happening everywhere, and nobody's ready. These kids aren't ready for this. I
Don't
mean,
even see it.
no one knows about rationing. You know, like the ration cards and things. I mean, I used them when I lived overseas in certain regions of Korea, in other words, and it was real strange. You can only buy so many things. This is coming, and that's one thing that scares me, Mike. And I'm not trying to go off subject, but
No, this is a part of it. We're gonna go into that.
I want to tell you about import out exports. Those runs it all, and we're losing in that field because think about all the you had like the different canal backups,
Right.
the Suez Canal. You had well, it happened 2 times like back to back, and I think it was the same company. And it was just really weird on how one in the Suez Canal and one in the Panama Canal.
The Panama Canal.
And it was the same company. And I'm looking at this thing like, okay, it's so many oddball things that are happening, but when it comes to that freight stop moving, these shelves get empty. You know, these kids, nobody's ready for that.
Right.
You know, they need to understand that when the government is going to give rations out, where you can't. You know, it's not going to be any welfare system anymore. These things people need to understand. If you
quarter a week a
dependent
day,
on that,
right?
yeah.
And the scriptures talk about this.
Yes. And once these things happen, it's like, where do we go from here? They don't have that mindset to get out there and hustle to get it themselves, because you're going to have to hustle and barter and all these things, because that's going to be the law of the land coming up soon. So.
Yeah. That's a great segue, and to open this conversation up in light of the current events, what's going on in the global economy, not just the United States, globally what's going on and the transitions that are taking place, right?
Yes.
And the shifts that are going against this Bretton Woods agreement that have brought the petrodollar into the forefront of the world economy. That's changing, right? And so you were talking about structuring yourself. How is it that the plans that you're aware of now, how can that secure families financially? Is it a tool and a measure that can assist families to insulate themselves and hedge themselves from some of the I will even say the woes that are coming in light of the economic transitions that are taking place?
Yeah, well, the way that we structure clients, like I said before, it's similar to how wealthy families have been doing it for generations. And when I say generations, I mean hundreds of years.
Hundreds, yes.
You know, a lot of my clients, they'll say, well, LaRon, why have I never heard of this before? Or why didn't I learn this in college? Or I have an awesome CPA. They never told me about this. Or my attorney has never mentioned anything about this type of trust. And I have a few quotes that kind of sums it up. One was in 1779. I'm going to read this. Thomas Jefferson. We all know how his thought pattern was, but let me show you what they were thinking of back in 1779. I quote Thomas Jefferson, is what he says. He proposed a 2-track educational system with 2 different tracks, in his words, for those that are laboring and for the learned. Scholarship would allow a very few of the laboring class to advance. He said very few of them would advance out of the laboring class by raking a few geniuses from the rubbish. So there's a 2-track educational system.
Right.
So that means his family is going to learn a little bit different than my family, obviously, you know. And we can see
By
that
design.
even, well, no, totally by design.
Totally.
And this is even older than that. This is, we've heard of the Rothschilds, right? Okay, so in 1863, the Rothschild brothers, they said the few who understand the system will either be so interested in its profits or be so dependent upon its favor that there will be no opposition from that class. While on the other hand, the great body of people mentally incapable of comprehending the tremendous advantage that capital derives from this system will bear its burden without complaint, and perhaps without even suspecting that the system is amenable to their interests. Amenable. That means harmful too. So the system is really harmful to our interests. You know, I seen a math problem that really summed it up the other day. It was the typical math equation to where if I give you $1 today and it doubles every day, how many days does it take before you get $1 million? Well, the answer to that is like 20 days. But what if I were to tax you at the capital gains rate? How long would it take for you to get to $1 million? It took over 100 years for you to get there. That's because it's set up for you to stay in a cycle. As long as, I mean, we have to pay taxes. Taxes are for the good of the community. But I would like to be able to judge what is for the good of my community with my dollar. These families that are structured properly, that are educated properly, can do that. Just like the brother here is saying, Brother Mays is saying, he's able to teach that to his daughter and to his children and his son. That's the most important thing. The structure is just a small piece of it. What we really teach is how to live in the structure to where you could pass it down to your kids and your kids' kids. Because it would be a shame to be able to amass this great fortune of wealth and then they lose it in the next generation, which is typical. We all know how it is when somebody, a matriarch in the family dies and whatever little insurance money is there, the family fights over it and we're fractured and we're not really whole. And it's not how that matriarch actually perceived his or her passing on to be. You know, of course they don't want to damage their family, but you know, that $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 life insurance policy sometimes does that. But if they're structured properly, you're not just throwing cash at them. You're giving them education. This is how this is to be spent. This is how it's to be replenished. In order for you to benefit off of this, you need to be able to replenish this.
Come on.
Not just take away from it. And that's what we teach. And you don't have to be a millionaire. $10,000, $5,000, $100,000. It can replenish a fund to help the next generation out. It's just that education aspect. So you ask, how is it how is that protecting, you know, for the next generation? That's exactly through education.
That's everything.
Through education, that's the only way we're going to be able to do that and to break some of these financial cycles that our community goes through, unfortunately. You know, and it's almost so simple, you know, like I said earlier, a lot of my clients say, why haven't I learned this? Well, your CPA and your attorney, they're licensed by a state. So they're underneath the state bar. Okay? So
British accredited registry.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't understand that. Right there. You hit it on the head.
The crown.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of in other words, a lot of the laws that we use here in the States come from over there. Because this was the 13 colonies when they were writing up the Constitution, they had to have a blueprint to go off of. And that's common law. Different than what we consider common law, like sitting, you know, we're a boyfriend, girlfriend living in the house together, common law. No, not that. We're talking about the common law of England. That's what our Constitution is based off of.
Truly so.
Now, so once you understand the epicenter of our Constitution, you can kind of work within that. It's a whole world. And I always say it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose, man. It took years to understand this and learn this and to unlearn some of the doctrine that's been placed in our head by our culture and by society. You know, so I appreciate you opening up this format to where we could share with the people because this is something that we definitely need in our community.
Huge. Thank you for sharing that. And you bring up an excellent point because one thing that I find that we have some cognitive dissonance about is reconciling the spiritual principle with the economic principle, right? We're taught blessed are the poor, right? And so how do you reconcile that, you know, and getting our people to understand the importance of financial literacy and how to pass that on to the next generation? Because when you look at the patriarchs and matriarchs in the word, they was wealthy, right? But the wealth was, of course, different. Now, they did have gold and silver, And I want to talk about that too.
Yes,
But they also had cattle, they had,
Yeah.
livestock and things of that nature, and material, cloth, you know what I'm saying? Things like that
textiles,
exuberated their wealth.
Well, they had things that would sustain them and their family into the next generation.
Amazing.
The livestock, of course, that's food.
Right.
Okay, the textiles, that's something that's that I can clothe my family and keep them warm with.
You can be a
make
merchant
a tent
as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
The gold and silver, that's something that you can barter with. That's securing your family. It's not the brain the name brand bag or shoe or the fancy car that's going to sustain your family into the next generation. There's a hole in us.
point.
And we try to fill that hole with shiny things like that to make us feel better, but it's really not helping that next generation. The Vanderbilts. We've all heard, how the Vanderbilts, that's this huge, rich, wealthy family.
Right.
But when the matriarch of that family died, he was one of the few that was not structured properly. He thought he was, but he was not. And by the third generation, well, that wealth was gone. Right. We're all familiar with CNN anchor Anderson Cooper. He is a Vanderbilt.
Interesting.
He has to have a job, a 9 to 5. Now, he does very well with his job, but he's not enjoying the wealth of his great-grandfather,
Right.
Unfortunately, because of mixed managed wealth. So, like I said earlier, you don't have to have millions and millions of dollars to be structured properly. And you don't have to be poor to be structured improperly. It's all about what you know in your education. And that's what I've been trying to share.
It.
I can give you the education. It's what you choose to do with it.
Yep. Yep. That's excellent. You want to respond to that question as well?
Hey,
just reconciling the
I could
spiritual with the economic, and getting over that cognitive dissonance that many of our people, and I can even say myself at times, I'm in a new phase of understanding how to move capital. And understanding it as a resource and then letting it work for me as opposed to always having to work for money. And I'm really in a hungering phase for that and understanding even the spiritual inheritance of prosperity. And not looking at it as in terms of serving money. I'm not serving money.
Gotcha.
I'm letting money serve me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But understanding how to do that.
Exactly.
What would you say?
One thing I started doing was for my children, instead of teaching them I have like these play dollars and all these things, right? And we play Monopoly and these things such, and teaching them about property with that. But then instead of paying, I learned that through Mrs. Franklin, who is she's a mentor also of ours, Mrs. Isha Franklin, and she taught me. She said, "Don't pay them when they do chores. Don't pay them with dollars or an allowance." She said, "No." She said, "What I do with my kids to teach them about real tangible assets." She said, "I paid them with pieces of copper." She said, "You can get a bag of copper." So what I did was, order a bag of copper. Now I know how much this much copper is going to represent silver or gold for them.
Right.
And this is how much this is going to be worth if you get this many pieces, and this is going to be your wealth that you have.
Wow.
And they're learning not to want to spend it all because well, not the boy. The boy he's still throwing it. But the daughter, she's like every time she gets her a little allowance or anything to that nature, or or her grandparents give her some type of money or what have you. She say, "Okay, Dad, we have to put that on the side because I want to buy my tangible asset." She said, "I want to buy my silver or my gold." Or I say, okay, cool, we're going to do that, Pumpkin. So I just pretty much hold on to that because that we can exchange that now while we have a chance to.
See, and what is he doing by doing that? When you go to a casino, what's the first thing they do? Convert, because they don't want you to. They don't want you to be emotionally attached to what they're about to take from you. So by giving his children tangible assets instead of a currency, he's taking away the emotional attachment that they would normally have with the currency. That's devaluing. Back in 1913, 1 kilo of gold cost $600. Okay. A brand new Ford vehicle back then cost $600. Now, here we are, fast forward to 2023. A kilo of gold is in the area of around $46,000 for a kilo.
Yeah, it's still going
Guess how
up.
much it costs for a new car? The same $46,000. Now, back in 1913, if I would have stuck $600 underneath my mattress, I might be able to make one car payment with that
Put some gold under there.
But if I had a kilo of gold, I would still be able to buy a car.
Right.
The purchasing power with that stayed the same.
It holds value.
We're emotionally attached to a fiat currency, which
Debt.
is a huge mistake.
Debt.
If you read it, it says this
It's a
is
debt
a
note.
debt incurring instrument, So before, years ago, a US dollar, when it was backed by something, it said due upon receipt 1 ounce of silver to the bearer of this note. It doesn't say that anymore.
Right.
Because it's just a worthless piece of paper. I wish it was still worth 1 ounce of silver.
Yeah, right.
I would be there right now.
Right.
Right.
And
But
that's
it's
the
not.
subtlety,
Dollar for dollar.
the printing of money and the minting of money. Right. When it was with the treasury, it was the people and it was the silver and the gold that backed it. Now it's the belief and the credit of the
This-
people.
And where's that
And
going
interest
now?
Petrol.
Down, plummeting.
Yes.
It's plummeting.
It's backed by power now with petrodollar and war, and now that's all out of the way. And people are doing what? Look what Japan did. This morning, Japan jumped ship and they went to buy Russian oil for a higher price. Versus, I'm going to stay with America and keep buying your oil, but everybody's on the Eastern Bloc. They're going toward the Chinese yuan, and they're going toward even the Russian ruble. So all that block is really sealing off really tight on that.
And the BRICS nations, they're backing their
Yes.
currency with gold. I mean, that's been taboo with America for years. We've taken down countries for
Because of
threatening to back
Gaddafi.
their currencies with gold.
Gaddafi,
And
yes.
Saddam Hussein,
Yeah.
the Iraqi dinar,
Yeah.
Now, so that's what's going on in geopolitical world right now. But
Right.
if you ask most of us in our culture here with us, what's going on?
Yeah.
They can tell
know.
you about the housewives. They can tell you about
My goodness.
this
Who got
rapper or
drafted
this
and,
happened or
Right.
but they're still emotionally attached to that debt incurring currency
Right.
when geopolitically it's becoming worthless right in front of them.
Yes.
By the moment. And that's what I was saying earlier. I was like, it's taboo to talk about economics, politics, and spirituality, but these are the most important activities that touch our life on the regular.
Yeah.
Yes.
That we don't want to really wrestle with and come to a consensus and understanding how we can help one another out.
Well, it's
You
the
know?
emotional attachment to it. That's sometimes like throwing a grenade inside of a room when you bring up those topics because there's shame there, there's fear there, there's ignorance there,
Right.
and we don't want to
Right.
shine a light on that. And we need to shine a light on that to heal. We can't heal unless a light is shined on it. We don't need to be embarrassed about those things because these are things that all of us are facing in our community. It's obvious.
Truly.
It's obvious in our community. So that needs to be the topic of conversation. So it's always refreshing to be able to talk to brothers like you about those things because when I'm talking to some of the other brothers who are not in tuned, it's like, man, I want to have that conversation. I want to help you, but my
don't
words are
wanna
going
fight,
out void. I don't want to fight,
Yeah.
and I don't want to throw some words out that are going void to you. Or something
Going
that you
over
don't
their head or
understand.
something, yeah.
Right.
So me personally, I just try to bring it on a consumable level,
Yeah.
a relatable level.
Right.
Maybe if I'm talking to one of my clients about fashion or something, I'll relate it to a global issue that's going on. To try to get them to look
Point of
globally.
reference, right,
Yeah,
global,
exactly.
right, yeah.
You got to meet people where they're at and what their interests are.
Truly.
Yes.
Truly.
See, this is why I bring LaRon with me sometimes because, I'm real. I get real fiery.
This is a
I can
passionate
be-
brother
I'm
right
very
here, boy.
passionate,
This is-
very. And I'm like, and LaRon is like
That Bayou fire.
He has that. He's smooth, and his brother he knows his stuff too.
doubt.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm usually like the guy if I'm trying to tell someone like a younger person, I'm like, I'm not beating them up per se. I'm saying you must think. You have to use this thing because if you don't use it, I said when these things start to happen,
Right.
you're going to see. I say you got to look at your world as far as technology is concerned. These things are important because this is what the next phase is when you look at the digital currencies that are coming
Yeah,
through.
we don't
Right?
get left behind.
So we have
that's the burden right there.
Yeah, we have the
And they tracing
CBDC.
everything.
Yeah, it's connected to everything. So this digital currency is connected to your social status. So if you did if you jaywalked or something like that, or they'll minus money out of your account, and they can shut it down anytime they want to for any reason.
Right.
And then the biggest thing is there's a law that connects it to where you have a certain amount of time to spend. Every time they give you this money, let's say it's someone that's on like the welfare system, for example. So what they're going to do is, if we give you, let's say you have, some people get like thousands of dollars per month for food, for food. But now when there's a food ration going on, and now you're going to, now that $1,000 you were getting is going to be shrunk down to $100, but you only have a certain amount of time to use it. But I see the big catch with this thing is like, even look at this thing, reparations they're doing. It's
right.
Yeah, I personally believe it's a setup because you have a dollar that's devaluing every day. It's going to crash, and then all of a sudden they're going to
give you a bucket full of Monopoly money.
Bucket full of
Here you go.
And you got here's that $5 million.
money.
I'm looking at some people who are expecting $5 million or more.
Right.
I'm looking at in Cali, just looking at some of the numbers they were talking about.
Right.
I'm like, per family?
Yes.
Per person, they're going to get a bunch of paper. They don't even know what they're not.
They're going to open up the printing presses right before everything falls apart and say, okay, we're square now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's like, no, I want what you have. I want gold and silver. I want something tangible. I want land. I don't want
that's what I want.
your
Assets,
IOU,
assets, yes.
you know,
Commodities.
because I know that's
tangible
worthless.
things. Right.
And China's about to call that in any moment.
Truly. We got about probably 7-8 minutes left, so this is what I want to wrap up with. And I would just call these suggestions, given the geopolitical and economic climate that we're now facing, right? From you all's perspective, what are some suggestions that we as a people can do to even just prepare for this transition that's literally knocking at the door? What would you all say are some good tips, right? I won't call it professional advice, just some suggestions, things to consider in light of where we're heading.
Well, one, I would say, with my family, try to accumulate as much tangibles. When I mean tangibles, I mean gold and silver. That doesn't mean take every penny that you have and buy only gold. And you do need some currency to be able to survive. But everything in excess, put it inside of a tangible asset, land, gold, silver. Also with that, we need to learn how to cultivate and grow our own food also, or at least invest in the things that take care of that. We have no earth moving equipment inside of our community. We have no land. Yeah, none. So we are still being hand fed, and that is very dangerous.
Yeah.
So these are the basic things. And besides that, just communicating with our brothers and sisters, just opening up dialogue and communication and showing love. Because without that, everything else is worthless also.
That's cool. I was thinking what I learned from my grandfather a long time ago. He went through the Depression and all these things. And I learned how he does the same thing. He collects food. He was bartering, but he said, boy, I learned how to make some wine or whiskey. So what I've been doing for years, I make wine. So I just so I can have my bartering tool, and just something I like to do anyway.
Wow.
And I learned that you buy whiskey. So but just buy any type. It doesn't matter. Just buy if you don't drink it at all. Buy the bottles from out of the store. You can buy whatever year from 2005, whatever brand, to 2010 or present day, and just put it away. That becomes what happens is that becomes a tangible asset.
It's a commodity.
So I know by law you can have about I think in Kansas like 400 something odd dollars of whiskey or wine hidden in your place or what have you. But I know
check the laws.
Check the laws. You got to make sure and check that number for me, y'all, because I remember this was a long time ago. I have been doing this since I've been here. I've been making wine, actually, Laurent. But
the good grapes.
The good grapes. So that's a good thing.
Do you use grape or fruit? Do you use fruit as well?
Yes. I can make it with any kind.
That's what's up.
See, and I have
anything.
fruit trees in my backyard. I don't have time to sit there and plow and do all this. But instead of me throwing a maple tree up in my backyard, I throw a few fruit trees
Yeah,
up
throw
there.
some
You know,
peaches
that
and
way there
pears
is
up
something on there.
You hear that, baby?
And my brother,
You
he
hear that,
can he can make some wine out of those pears.
Hey, man,
and
I
stuff.
know. Hey, man, bring him in. Hey, we could get it going.
But also,
real.
before we get out of here, brother, if you don't mind, I want to plug, we are doing an educational event coming up April
Wonderful.
14th at the Plaza Library.
Okay.
Starting at 5:30, doors open up. April 14th at the Kansas City Plaza Library.
Wonderful.
We are doing an educational event called How to Build a Financial Arc for Your Family and Business.
Yes.
So you
Let's
see
go.
where we're going with that.
Let's go.
Yes.
And
And
it's
it's
cards and
free.
everything for you. I got all the information.
We're not
Wonderful.
selling anything, and we're not asking for anything, and it's all about education. So we're inviting your audience.
Beautiful. Y'all hear that? April 14th, 5:30 at the Kansas City Plaza Library, right?
Yes,
so is that
sir.
going to be in the main conference room?
Yes, the main
upstairs?
yes upstairs main conference room. If you can, at swingtreetrust.com. I would like for you guys to go on so we can get a head count because there is a
Seating is limited.
Yes, and I don't want people showing up getting turned away. But swingtreetrust.com is where you can register just so
Put
we
that
can get a
in there
head
right now.
count.
It's online. It is
Okay, right
online.
on. All
Got
praises.
you. That's powerful, man.
Yes,
so
sir.
so that's how we can get in contact with you, swingtreetrust.com.
Yes, sir.
How can we get in contact with you, Brother Mays?
Mine right now is themazefoundation.org. Themazefoundation.org with a THE in front of it.
Got you.
Yes, sir. And that's me right there. So
Boom, got that on there
Right
as
when you
well.
email it, it'll come right to me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last words of wisdom, parting words of wisdom. What would you all say? What would be your parting words of wisdom?
Hey, it's strength and unity. You know, find like-minded brothers. You know, don't always be the smartest person in your room either.
That's it. I say my words of wisdom is to make sure you're keeping the Most High God first, you know, and then think about look at our neighbors, look at your neighbors around you, you know, our people around you. Again, like Ron saying, it's about unity. It's about helping each other because we see a lot of that same thing. We know that curse of violence that we see all the time. And it starts with one person. So anybody that's listening, you know that, you know, look at yourself in the mirror. That's what I want to say. Look in the mirror. Look at yourself, and this change starts there. You know, and we can come together by one person say, I want to open my mind. I'm a country boy. And I'm like, I made up my mind to say, I don't want to be a Bayou boy anymore. I don't want to, you know, not that I didn't love
No, I get it.
my little
But them
upbringing.
principles,
But it's like it's just a whole.
converted.
This world is a monster, and it'll eat you up if
Yeah.
you don't, you know, use this brain of yours
Truly.
and say and think that the world is bigger than what's in front of you.
Truly.
So yeah, that's
Truly,
my
man.
words. Right? We got
Powerful.
to do this again, Mike. Gotta do
We'll
part two.
We'll do part
All
two.
right,
then.
all right.
We'll
We
get
gotta
part
do
two. We
part
come
two
back in
now.
4 weeks. Matter of fact, we'll
Yes.
make this in 4 weeks. But I want to thank y'all brothers for coming in and sharing.
Hey,
Yeah,
brother,
praise
thank you, man. It's a
Powerful. Truly,
pleasure.
truly.
Thank you.
Always a
This is
pleasure.
Brother
Right
Gerald
on.
Mays here. We got Brother
man.
LaRon Green. This was Mastering the Matrix Paradigmatics, and I hope you all got something out of this, man. I know I did. I'm going to definitely stay in touch with y'all, you know
Yes,
what I'm
sir.
saying? But we're going to be back in 2 weeks with Brother Seth Irvin. We're dealing with praise paradigmatics. He's going to share some of his worldviews and his poetry. But we got Smart Money coming up next with Sister, what's her name again? I'm sorry. Valencia Broadus is coming up right after this show. But I want to thank my listeners for tuning in. I want to thank the brothers again for coming and sharing your minds with us. Man, much love to you all, and prosperity as always, and blessings. But this is B. Michael here with Shifting Paradigms. I want to thank you all again for tuning in. I'm signing out. Peace and power. Shalom and shalom.
Shalom. Peace.
Man, I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.